opportunity. And more importantly, exposing the defendant's lies about the most important thing he could have told law enforcement. When was the last time I saw my wife and child alive? Why in the world would an innocent, reasonable father and husband lie about that? And lie about it so early? He didn't know that was there. And he could always say, well, Rogan must be mistaken. I'm surprised. Not if my times are right, was what he said. Rogan told you I was expecting that video right there. That was supposed to be the next thing that happened. Send me the video because we were worried about Cash the dog's tail. He talked about how his girlfriend was going to call a veterinarian, or she had some association with one. There was an active conversation going on right then and right there. And what's going on still? Paul's still also texting his friends. You might recall that in opening statement, the defense counsel said, oh, he was texting after that video for 10 minutes. It's not for 10 minutes. It's for barely a minute. Down here, 8:48:58 to 8:49:01. That's the last time that Paul's phone was unlocked. And what do we know? We know that the defendant was there just minutes earlier at the scene of the crime with the victims. (8:49:01). Paul's phone locks. He never sends that video to Rogan. You heard Rogan say that when he watched that video. You heard him say, that's the video I was supposed to receive. That is the video that my friend was supposed to send to me. And he never did. In fact, Rogan responds at 8:49:35, and he says, see if you can get a good picture of it. Mary Ann, his girlfriend, wants to send it to a girl we know that's a vet. Tell him to sit and stay, and he shouldn't move around too much. Even though this is an active conversation with Paul, who you heard from multiple friends, was one to respond and use his cell phone, Paul never reads it. Paul never reads it. What happens at 8:49:31? We're 8:49:01 for Paul, 8:49:31. Maggie reads Lynn's response to the group thread about Mr. Randolph, and then her phone locks forever. And is never unlocked again until it's recovered the next day. Down here, 6:8 at 1:10. $8.49 for both of them. The defendant, after hearing multiple individuals of his family and friends and law partners get on the stand and listen to that video and say, that's him on that video, got on the stand for the first time and said, okay, I was there. He was forced into doing what he does all the time, and that's coming up with a new lie when he's confronted with evidence he can no longer deny. And the only reason he did that is because all those witnesses at that witness stand said, yeah, that's him. He's there. Why would he lie about that, ladies and gentlemen? Why would he even think to lie about that if he were an innocent man? Why would he even think about that? But he got on the stand and he's told you a story, and we're going to talk more about that story in a minute. But his story was that he didn't want to go down there, and then he went down there, and he went down there really quick and got care of the chicken and went straight back, and he can't remember anything about what he talked about with Maggie. He can't remember their conversation at dinner, but he's dadgum sure about the fact that he went down there and went straight back. But even if you give him the benefit of the doubt, his story doesn't make sense. Because that kennel video is 50 seconds. It's over at 8:45. Even if you give him the benefit of the doubt that he could take care of the chicken and maybe the fastest dog and chicken chase ever, and put that chicken up and not say a word to Maggie and Paul and get on that golf cart and drive all the way back to the house, where does that put you? It puts you right at 8:49. At which point he claims he went inside and he managed to doze for a second. Then he's up at 9:02, perhaps the quickest nap ever. It doesn't make sense, ladies and gentlemen. It's a new story to fit facts he can no longer deny. From a person who, not a single person who was close to him knew who he really was. Not a single person close to him hadn't been lied to by this man. And I would submit to you that this one is the most blatant one yet. And we'll talk more about that in a second. What happened at 8:49? Y'all been to the scene. That feed room door is probably a bit tighter than this. But you saw the evidence from Kenny Kinsey and all the rest of them that clearly Paul was in the middle of that feed room. It's a kill zone. Nobody in there with him. He's in that room. No defensive wounds at all. His hands are down. And he takes that shot, buckshot to the chest. And any person who did that would probably think that took care of business, because this buckshot, but for some reason he was canted this way and it went through. It was 1,000,001 shot. That it didn't kill him. Alec thought it did. Alec, the lawyer, Alec, the prosecutor, Alec who's thinking through that we'll see he's manufacturing an alibi, and he's also manufacturing the fact that there's 2 guns used. But we know, unlike the expert they called from Connecticut, where they can't even get ARs, who doesn't know about people riding around on property, he doesn't know about Paul and the 2 guns he likes to use, he doesn't know about this family and how common those guns are together, says, well, his only conclusion is, oh, it would be practical for somebody just to fire out the clip. But this is him, this is Alec, the prosecutor, the lawyer, and he's thinking through this. He's thought through this. He's going to use 2 guns because it's going to confuse people that perhaps there were 2 shooters. But again, it doesn't make sense. 2 family weapons? But he thinks Paul's shot. And you heard the testimony that Paul appears in the feed room doorway. Is Alex putting down that shotgun to pick up the blackout and is startled by Paul? And that's why the angle's like that? And catches Paul like that? And goes up into the ceiling, as you've heard the testimony from Kinsey. And blows his brains out. And what happens with Maggie right here? We see activity on Maggie's phone. You heard about sandal prints. You heard from Kenny Kinsey about the mark on her leg from the Polaris over there by the overhang next to the feed room. You've seen the diagrams and the crime scene photos that all those cases are in that area between the doorway to the feed room and where Maggie was found. You heard that Maggie had no defensive wounds. You also heard Paul and stippling from that first shot, a close range shot, with no indication that he detected a threat from the person who fired that weapon. And why? Because it was him. Same with Maggie, because Maggie sees what happens and she comes running over there, running to her baby. Probably the last thing on her mind, thinking that it was him who had done this, she's running to her baby while he's picked up the blackout and opens fire at close range, again with no defensive wounds. And she takes those two shots that you heard Dr. Reamer say were parallel, and it crumples her over. In those cases, you can see them move around. And takes that shot that goes through here, and she goes down flat. And then there's the shot in the back of the head. Malice? Is that malice, ladies and gentlemen? Is that malice to do that? Is that intentional harm to another with a bad intent, with an evil intent to do those things? Clearly, I submit to you. Clearly, it's malicious. Clearly, it's malicious. She was running to her baby, heard that shot, and was running to her baby when she got mowed down by the only person that we have conclusive proof was at that scene just minutes before, and who lied about that very fact until he could no longer do it to you last week. Alec told you he went down there in the golf cart. We'll talk about this a little bit, but they had their expert come up here with the 5'2" people and all the rest of it. Be sitting in a golf cart. But he comes up in the golf cart. But what we don't see, as I said before, is any activity on his phone until 9:02. That the crime occurred around 8:49 to 8:53. Down there at the feed room, State's Exhibit 516. It's just a diagram. Remember that Roger Dale Davis did about kennels and the hose there and how it wasn't put up the way he would put it up? If you're going to wash off real quick, what better place to do it? The water, the pictures of the water in States 199 and 190. It wouldn't take long to strip down and wash yourself off. Get in that cart and head back to the house. And then at 9:02, the defendant over there, who wouldn't even admit until forced to that he was even at the scene, all of a sudden, he is as busy as he has ever been. 9:02 to 9:06, 283 steps. 9:03, we see the system start up on the car, and that could mean that he's close by the car. Has he returned with Maggie's phone and placed it in that car? And then what do we see from 9:02 to 9:06? Not only is he 283 steps in that 4-minute period, but he is making calls like crazy. And I asked him, I said, what were you doing? What were you doing? And even though he has a photographic memory about things that he thinks will convince you, he could not answer what he's doing during this 4-minute period that is so illustrating of what we're talking about here. That for 4 minutes, he is not only going 283 steps, This is a defense exhibit, defense 156. .283 steps, and they put in the distance. We heard the distance isn't as accurate, but it illustrates the point. That's 208 meters. Meter, roughly is a yard, a little bit more, a little bit less, I don't remember. But let's say it's 600 feet. It's a lot. And he couldn't remember what he was doing. I asked him, you been on a treadmill? Were you doing jumping jacks? What were you doing at the same time you're calling all these phones? Why is he calling multiple times? We can see right here. He calls Maggie. He calls Randolph. He calls Maggie again. All in that 4-minute period where he's moving around. But he couldn't remember what he was doing. Just getting ready. Is the prosecutor, the lawyer, manufacturing his alibi? Because he knows he's got to get to Alameda quick. He's got to compress those timelines, and that's exactly why he knew to lie about being at the kennels to start with. He's got to compress those timelines so that it would convince whoever down the road that he couldn't have done it. He's got to compress them. And that's why he's doing all that right then and there.